Not when you have a horse like Trigger. He was one of the greatest horses that ever walked, and I really appreciate him. He did all of my TV series and all of the pictures I made for theater.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! Come here for a minute. I want to talk to you. Mama says you're brain dead, bang your head against the wall. Can't find peace of mind, brain needs an overhaul. Bonehead, brain dead, we're all the same. You can't think straight when your heart is in pain. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay your burden down.
The views expressed on this broadcast of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show are those of the co-host and guest and do not necessarily reflect those of our affiliates. The topics and opinions on today's show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice. Take 12 Radio is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. And now, here's your host,
the man, the myth, the legend,
the Monty Man.
I'm telling you the truth, man, I ain't gonna lie to you.
Hello.
Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay your burden down.
Welcome to another fine episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, broadcasting to you from the studios of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting. Dave Fleming is
What's up?
He is sitting in Tony's chair right now.
You pass that brown and serve?
We'll talk about that. Tony isn't with us this week, but Marv's here.
Howdy. How's it going?
Dave's here, and
Hey.
Denver.
Hi, Tony.
Tony moved to Independence, which is, what, about 30 minutes?
A long way.
30 minutes away?
Long ways
Pretty
away.
patriotic there.
Independence.
Could have been.
Independence. Yes. Anyway, she moved to Independence. She's still on the show, but just not today.
Yeah.
Because she's getting her innards fixed on her car.
There you go.
She's getting
Yeah. Yeah, that's like Arby's commercial right there.
right.
I don't get that Arby's commercial at all.
What commercial
What
is
Arby's
that?
commercial?
The one where they have the meat for sandwiches. What?
We have the beef.
No, they say, we have the meat for sandwiches. All right.
So we've answered the question.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, Arby's.
We've answered the question, where's the beef?
Yeah.
It's at Arby's. Arby's. We have the meat for sandwiches. Hi, Marv.
Hi.
How you doing? Good. I'm glad. And so this week's topic is triggers, not to be confused with Trigger, the horse from the little sound clip with Roy Rogers there. I guess Trigger was 33 years old when he passed.
Wow.
Yeah. Roy Rogers, they were extremely close. They just weren't movie buddies. They were buddies. Anyway, I watched the whole video, him talking about Trigger. It was pretty impressive, pretty cool stuff. We're going to be talking about triggers, though, today, fact or fiction. There's lots of opinions within the recovery community on whether triggers are actually a real thing. Are they an excuse? Are they a red flag? Are they a warning sign? Do they exist? What does the brain say when it comes to triggers? We're going to be talking all about that. And by the way, I heard, Dave, have you heard this? They're actually trying to do away with the word triggers, and they're replacing it with the word activate. Have you heard about that? Because
No,
evidently,
but I'm not surprised.
the
May
word
offend
trigger,
somebody, right?
well, the word trigger seems to be triggering people. So now some of the professionals, so I had somebody comment on this, so I looked into it, and it's true.
Who's they?
The
When you
SAMHSA,
say that they're trying to change it.
SAMHSA wants people to try to ease into referring to it with other wording other than triggers, and activate is one of them. So does it activate you when you go down that particular street?
It doesn't even roll off the tongue.
Activate.
I don't know if it's going to catch on.
I don't know either.
We've been so conditioned for all these years.
I know. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that. I want to give a special shout out to Patrick LeBeau and Roger McDermott.
Yay.
Two of our major sponsors. We have a new mic, my new mic, and then we have 4 brand new mic booms in the studio. And if it wasn't for the generosity of our sponsors, and by the way, the good news, besides that, and because of several others who have contributed, and Roger and Patrick, we've made all our bills once again.
Excellent. Thank you.
We've been able to pay all our bills up once again, and good thing. Because nobody here makes any money. We just keep paying bills to keep us on the air. And if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to do that. So I just want to say a hearty thank you to each and every one of you that has contributed. I lost my mouse. Oh, there's my mouse. All right. Anywho's it. Uh-oh.
Stop right there. It's time for the Monty Man's Weekly Whine.
Complain and whine, you're the Monty Man. And we know how you love to complain. There's always something to whine about. 'Cause each week you drive us insane. That's right, everybody.
That's right.
It's that time again for Monty Man's Weekly Whine.
And that, for Tony's sake, is the farm baby. She referred to it as the farm baby because now she lives on a farm. Tony had a whine she wanted me to share. You know how she doesn't like bugs? She hates bugs and flying little critters and things like that.
Let me give you a little fun fact when we're done here.
Well, now she's out on a farm in Independence where the bugs are 3 times the size and there's thousands more of them. There you go. What's your fun fact?
I don't have the exact statistics, but I read it where there's enough spiders, tonnage-wise, that if they were... Did you read that?
No.
All right.
I don't. I hate spiders.
Yeah, well, there's enough of them on Earth that if they all grouped together, that within a week they would eat mankind.
That's lovely.
So just remember that,
That is
when
lovely.
they're dangling above your head, that if they all collectively come together, if they get tired of us or the chemtrails hit or something heavy, they could take over the world.
I mean, I have a hard enough time when they hatch and then they come, like this last year, they came inside on the inside of the door out here at the studio. Thousands of little tiny, really, really tiny when they're little.
The kind you breathe.
Yeah, and they were just covering the base of the door. So I swept them up with my sharp.
I'm sure they remember
vacuum
that.
And
cleaner.
now they're climbing out of the vacuum.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
coming
You
up.
transported them into the house.
No, we
spread
dumped
them
them.
around.
We dumped them. Oh, yeesh. Okay, so
Are you sure you got them all?
so here's my wine. It's a very personal wine. Canker sores. Yeah, anybody here ever have a problem with canker
All right.
sores?
Maybe you ought to go to the doctor.
Oh my gosh! So I was having swelling in my legs, so
not
the doctor
canker
put me
sores.
on Lasix, which is Bruce used to have to take this
Yeah.
all the time, right? It's
Yeah.
to get rid of the water in your
Water.
system. One of the rare side effects is canker sores. It's very rare, but I got one right on the main vein underneath my tongue, and it was about 1/4 of an inch in size. That's big. And it made me sicker than a dog, and I'm whining about it because it's still there. It isn't as painful.
Them old salty sausages didn't slide down so easy, did they?
No. But the swelling in my leg has gone down because I stopped eating eight brown and served sausages in the morning and 8 brown and served sausages at night.
Oh, Lord.
And the sodium content in my body went down. Imagine that. Wow.
There's a win and a wine all together.
I don't like canker sores. That's my whine. Anybody got anything to whine about?
Human race.
Human race. Wow. Wine? Anybody want to whine? No? Marv, no whiny?
No, I'm good.
Are you good? Dave, no whiny today?
No, I'm thankful.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I have a win. Marcia and I went to see the movie with, I'm going to slaughter his name here, Amesh Patel and Ed Sheeran. The movie Yesterday, about a musician that he was okay, I guess, kind of a folk musician. Some phenomenon happened worldwide. All the lights went out on the planet. He got into an automobile accident, and when he woke up, everything was the same except the Beatles never existed, other than their music that only he knew. And he discovered, as he was playing Beatles songs, that people thought he wrote them. Because the Beatles never existed, except for in his head. So he became this incredible musician and became famous. But then, as scruples were, they kind of got to him and he had to cop to what he was doing. Really, really well done movie. Very family friendly. Ed Sheeran, if you know who he is, the redheaded, geeky-looking musician from, he's from Australia or Britain or something like that. He played a main role in it. And Amesh Patel, I think he's the brother of the guy that was in Slumdog Millionaire. Really good movie. If you have an opportunity to go see Yesterday, you really need to do that. The music is phenomenal. So that was my win. There you go. Been to the movies lately, Denver? No? Dave? No? Marv? No? All right. So
Not since Arizona.
Yeah, what did we go see?
I just wait till they come out and I watch them on TV.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but, Marcia and I have this new lease on life. We're trying to go to see a movie at least once or twice a month, just as a date night. And it's nice. And we usually go over to Corvallis, where it's a little cheaper. There's more popcorn in the bag. And still, the movie I always want to see is at the very far end of the theater.
They don't have wheelchairs for people like you?
It's called exercise.
Nope, I try not to do that as much as I possibly can. I try to keep mobile. Anyway, there you go. All right, so we're going to take a little break and hear from Lifeline Connections, and then we're going to come back and play a little Take 12 trivia before we get to the topic. Don't go away.
Oh, boy.
Whoopee.
Lifeline Connections made a difference in my life. I am free.
I am strong and empowered. Lifeline Connections changed our lives.
To begin your journey of healing today, call 360-397-8246 or visit lifelineconnections.org.
Hey, it's the Monty Man with a question for you. Why not take us on the go? You can download our app for iOS or Android by simply visiting us at take12radio.com and click on Follow Me on Podomatic. And if you're really old school, check us out on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/MONTYMEYER. All right, a little Take 12 trivia coming up right now as we wait for the cue. 3, 2, 1, and bam.
All right, everybody, it's time for Take 12 Trivia, brought to you by that award-winning recovery magazine, the 12-Step Gazette. Visit their website at 12stepgazette.com. Now take it away, the Monty Man.
All righty, thank you, Cecil. A little Take 12 trivia, fish trivia. Little fish trivia.
Which fish?
I don't know.
Sounds fishy to me.
So if you get it right, you get Denver's cowbell. If you get it wrong, that's what you get. All right.
Do we get a ribbon for participation?
A ribbon for everybody gets a participation.
Yeah,
ribbon.
everybody wins.
Everybody wins, even the losers. Yeah. Okay. So this is totally useless.
Really?
Not meaning to be useful in any way, shape, or form, except
Thank
for
God.
maybe something that you can play with your friends later on in the day. Who knows?
Or not.
Or not. Number one, approximately how many species of fish are there worldwide? Here's your choices: 9,000, 27,000, or 56,000. What do you think, Marv?
56.
What do you think, Dave?
I'll go with Marv 56.
All right, will you? Denver?
It's a big, big C. I go large, too. With
All right, you're all wrong.
Excellent.
27,000, actually. B. All right, number two, what species?
All right, thanks, man.
It's rigged.
It's like, who cares?
Let me look it up.
I
Hang
mean,
on.
This is
I
probably
gotta Google this.
This is probably the most who gives a rip
Yeah,
trivia
really.
that we've ever done. What species of fish produces the most eggs? Ocean sunfish, squirrelfish, or salmon? Squirrel! Squirrel!
No, sunfish. Seriously, take that serious. Sunfish.
Sunfish? What do you think there, Dave?
Salmon.
Okay, Marv?
I was thinking salmon.
Were you? All right, Dave and Marv are incorrect. You are correct there, Mr.
Telling you.
Denver.
I know my fish trivia.
We had to give you something.
Ocean sunfish, yeah.
How many eggs?
30 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See?
30 million.
30
That's a
million
lot of eggs.
That's
If
a
you're out
lot of
swimming
eggs.
in the ocean. Keep
Per
your mouth
what?
closed.
Per session, per year, per
hatching.
lifetime.
No, every time
For spawning.
she hatches.
Boom,
Yeah,
boom.
30 million eggs.
Wow, that's crazy.
Whee!
No wonder
Okay.
there's so many.
Sunfish.
Number three, how many different varieties of goldfish are there? 20, 50, or 100?
Onion? Wow.
Or 100, Marv?
Conservative. I'm going to go 20.
Are you? Okay, Dave?
Well, what's
20, 50, or 100? Species of goldfish.
50?
Dave is going to be correct with 50.
Okay, what do you say there?
50. Why would I pick the wrong answer, Monty?
Okay, you're all wrong.
All right.
It's 100.
Really?
Did you say 100?
No, I said 20.
You said 20. Okay. All right. What is the fastest fish? Is it a swordfish, a racing shark, or a sailfish? Dave?
Jackalope.
The wrong species.
Fastest fish. Swordfish, racing shark, or sailfish? What do you think, Dave?
Well, could pick the obvious one, but swordfish.
Yeah, don't go with the obvious. It's wrong.
Marv, what do you think?
What are they again?
Swordfish, racing shark, or sailfish?
Sailfish.
Okay. What do you think there, Denver?
Oh, man, I don't care.
Come
but I'm going
on.
to go with sailfish.
Okay, you guys would be right. Dave would be incorrect. All right, we'll do one more.
How fast?
Pretty fishy.
All right. In the movie,
You
Finding...
don't even know, do you?
What?
This is worthless.
No, I don't know.
How fast is
I don't.
a
I didn't
sailfish?
write. I did write down the egg amount but I thought that was pretty amazing. In the movie Finding Nemo, what kind of fish is Nemo? Is he a guppy? Is he a marlin? Or is he a clownfish? Come on,
Clownfish.
Denver.
He's a guppy.
Marv.
Clownfish.
Clownfish is correct. He's not
Ah.
a guppy.
Well, I don't watch movies. It's too far down the aisle for me to get there.
The last fish movie you watched was Mr. Limpid.
Yeah, right. Das Limpid. Don Knotts.
That was
Remember that?
awesome.
Gee, that was a great flick.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's available.
He falls into
Yeah.
he falls into the water and he turns into a fish.
Oh, wow.
Don Knotts turns into a
his
fish.
his life sucks.
If I needed
Yeah.
a trigger, that
Or
would
he
be
thinks his
it.
life sucks.
So he makes a wish or something like
Yeah.
that, and then he becomes this fish with spectacles on.
All right.
Yeah, and then he saves the world by working for
Wait.
the Navy or
Yeah,
something.
right.
Right?
This was made a long time ago, huh?
Yes.
So you know the graphics are good.
Oh, horrible. So the animated fish is in the water, but the graphics surrounding it, the outline
Yeah,
is really horrible.
You know it's good.
But it's a great
It's
flick.
a fish on a stick.
All right, I'll give you one more. What is
Oh.
the most poisonous fish on the planet? Is it a needlefish, a snailfish, or a pufferfish?
Puffers.
I like puffers.
What do you think, Marv?
Puff.
Puffer.
Puffer, you guys are correct. It is a
Oh, there
pufferfish.
we all get a bell now.
Yeah, but if cooked properly, you won't die.
Yeah, you can take that chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. All right, that does it for useless Take 12 trivia. Where's the recovery in that? I have
We've just started it.
idea. Oh, boy. Okay, so triggers, fact or fiction. So here's a little, where'd it go? Here it is. Here's a little sound clip. I'm losing my paperwork. There it is. Allison Walsh from the Advanced Recovery Systems. Let's hear what Allison has to say about triggers.
Triggers can be anything from seeing or experiencing a situation that they have in the past to being in a stressful situation. There's a wide range of triggers. And for somebody that's struggling with addiction, a lot of the work that's done in treatment is identifying what those are. You know, is it stress? Is it a coping mechanism? Are you dealing with complicated grief, anxiety, depression? And are those things exacerbated when you're put in certain situations? Identifying what those are and making sure that if you are triggered, that you know how to cope with it is important. So oftentimes we'll hear somebody say, I was put back in a really stressful situation at work, or I lost a loved one and I am feeling, incredibly out of control. I have cravings to use. First thing we say is go back to one of your groups, go to a group, go to your therapist, talk to us, let us see before it starts to spiral again. So again, we always refer to it as putting your tools in your toolbox and making sure you know what to do should you be presented with those circumstances or situations again in the future. So you can't help life. Life happens. It's stressful. It's hard. But knowing how to cope with it in a healthy way is what we teach our patients to do.
That's Allison Walsh from Advanced Recovery System. So she makes an interesting point. Life is hard, right? It's hard for everybody, and I wanted to read a couple of things that it seems kind of hopeless when you look at this without really researching it or checking it out for yourself in your own recovery and some of the tools you can use. But triggers are social, environmental, or emotional situations that remind people in recovery of their past drug or alcohol use. These cues bring about urges that may lead to a relapse. While triggers do not force a person to use drugs, they increase the likelihood of drug use. The National Institute on Drug Abuse reports that 40 to 60% of people treated for substance use disorder relapse. Long-term drug use creates an association in the brain between daily routines and drug experiences. Individuals may suffer from uncontrollable drug or alcohol cravings when exposed to certain cues. The cravings act as a reflex to external or internal triggers. And this response can even affect individuals who have abstained from drugs or alcohol for long periods of time. So here's a couple of examples, and then we'll just open it up for discussion. External triggers would be people, places, things, or situations. External triggers are people, places, activities, and objects, and thoughts or cravings associated with substance use. Internal triggers would be things like depression, grief, or self-loathing. So it would seem to me that life then would be filled with triggers, right? So how in the world do people...
You're doomed.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you would think you would be doomed. So how in the world, if triggers are activations, if you will, are so prevalent, I know that a lot of folks that I've got emails and comments about on this topic before and recently say, well, saying that things trigger me is just an excuse. Other people would say, well, you have to learn to be able to stay sober even in the midst of triggers. I would totally agree with that. Are they real or are they fictional? Dave, you work in the field. You're a certified alcohol and drug counselor level 2. What's the deal with triggers, brother?
Yeah, Dave.
Well, I always go back to a great example was that actually I saw it when I was in treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a documentary called The Hijacked Brain.
Ah.
And they basically took a bunch of crack cocaine addicts in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And they scanned their brains when they were high. And then when they were sober, they would take them down to these areas where they used to get high and then scan their brain again, and the same part of their brain activated as when they were doing the drugs. So you didn't even have to use. They were getting high just from being
And some of these were after a long period of abstinence, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's science behind it. But like you said, the idea is that you figure out what those triggers might be, or those activating events, I guess is a new word of the day.
Right.
And try to make adjustments. Because I know for myself, it was a 24/7 deal. So, everything it could potentially be a trigger if I looked at it that way. So when I finally got sober, it was about, I had to utilize the option of the only thing you have to change is everything. And that was basically doing the opposite of what I was doing before.
Mm-hmm.
To help train myself in any of those situations. Plus, other things that happened in my life. But if I'm drinking or using 24/7, then pretty much everything that I'm doing, every place I'm going
is associated with
whether
that.
I go out or I stay in, or
Sure.
whatever. Yeah.
Sure.
I see a pen, it can be a trigger for me if I let it. I think about it, to be honest. If I see especially if I see someone that has a pen that they took the innards out of, right?
Right.
Or even the end of it off.
Right.
It's like my brain goes back
Maybe use it as a straw or something.
Yeah, use
like
it, snorting meth or
right.
And so it's just I use it now as to remind me of what it was like, and don't want to go back there.
So in your travels as somebody who's worked in this field, particularly as a certified and licensed drug and alcohol counselor, is it common, in your opinion and your experience, to see triggers more prevalent in people that are narcotic addicts than it is in alcoholics?
I think it just depends on the person.
Yeah. I'm talking about pure alcoholics, not
pretty equal. Especially, alcohol, narcotics it's a little harder to, you can get triggered by, places and people, and things.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol is everywhere. It's on TV. It's movies. It's on, billboards and social media, and is accepted because it's legalized.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Interesting. Yeah.
What the numbers are. It's
right.
There isn't really any, in my experience, I can't say that there's any number one side or the other.
Sure.
Where there's more triggers.
Sure.
It just depends on the person and where they're at and what their life has been like.
Right. Right.
And then if they get, if they stay in that life, how some people will go to treatment and they'll go right back to the same environment that they were living in before.
It's interesting because within our 12-step support meetings, what we'll hear a lot is, oh, that's just a bunch of psychobabble, and all you got to do is read this book and follow these steps, and you'll be able to do anything, go anywhere. In fact, in one part of the literature in Alcoholics Anonymous, it says you could even go to old-fashioned whoopee parties. My question about that would be, if you were in fit spiritual condition, why would you want to go to an old-fashioned whoopee party anyway?
Right.
But if you find yourself, I do think that you have to come to a point that if you find yourself in a situation, those things aren't triggering you to use anymore. I know today I can go to a wedding where they're serving alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the obsession to pick up a drink. And that is for a number of reasons. Obviously, bottom line is God's done for me what I could not do for myself, but it was a process that took place as a result of applying and implementing the 12 steps in my life, having a spiritual awakening as a result of those steps, and then developing this relationship with a power greater than myself. And then because of that, I can go places where I didn't think I would be able to, or before that might have triggered me. One of the things that used to, something would happen inside of me, I would start feeling sick inside, was the color orange. If I saw a little piece of paper that was orange or a piece of plastic that was orange on the ground. Now, why? Because syringes have an orange cap, most of them. And for a long time, I'd say my first 3 years of being clean from intravenous drug use, I would see that orange, like if I went to a public bathroom, there was a piece of paper that was orange, because I would use in public bathrooms, and I associated that. I mean, I would start to sweat. I got to tell you, I didn't feel like using. I felt like throwing up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It was weird. And I never could figure it out until I started doing a little bit of research and finding out what was happening in my brain, right? And thank God that doesn't happen to me anymore.
Yeah, but were you working a program at the time, or were you know?
Yeah, I was.
Well, that I think is where the difference is because when we get in those situations and we can identify them,
right,
and we do something to get out of that situation,
right.
Same with the wedding. I bet you drive yourself, so that if things were to get sideways,
you bet,
or you had a thought, you can get in your car and leave. And
I intuitively do those things now. They're just automatic. You know, I don't jump in the car with a bunch of the old drinking buddies and go to a wedding.
Right. So it's the same thing with, other, whatever, religions and whether or not you even go to a program, you're in a AA or whatever program,
sure,
you can still do the same thing. You just got to train yourself not to, to do something different.
Right.
To ask for help.
Because you got to live life, right? You got to be able to go down
right.
the vegetable aisle in your grocery store, and just because the beer is across from the vegetables, at some point you got to learn to be able to go get your veggies.
Well, you don't even have to leave your house anymore.
Well, that's true. You can get delivery.
Unfortunately. So there's you can either, I'll never go out of the house because I won't have to get triggered, but you can have dope delivered to your house now. They have these marijuana delivery services. So there's all this. You don't even have to leave your house. So you just have to figure out how to live life on life's terms and work through those struggles.
Marv, what do you think about all this nonsense? You think the triggers are real, or
I was afraid you were going to say something. I guess what I thought about, I don't really have a lot. Is there's more to triggers than just what you guys have been talking about.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is what you guys have been talking about, and it's a reality.
Yeah.
Is the idea that there's some event, circumstance, situation that causes somebody to go out and use or drink. But I think there's other kinds of triggers too that cause emotional problems that eventually could cause somebody to go drink or use.
If not dealt with, you mean?
Huh?
If not dealt with?
Yeah, and I think that's why they talk about the patience of alcoholics or the disease.
I see.
It's sitting there waiting,
Oh, yeah.
And I've been triggered by certain things that I was thinking about it. It was more like a nuance, not a distinct. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I can see. I haven't done it where I could go drink, but there would be a series of going down this tricky trail before I would get to the drink. So I don't know how to explain it any other way. I don't even know if that makes sense.
No, I think it does. I think it does. So
from a spiritual point of view, now I'm sorry to interrupt
you. No,
but from a spiritual point of view, if you look in the bigger book, how many times does it talk? I'm kind of relating triggers as to temptation. Where's our faith at when we have these things happen to us?
Right. And the good book also talks about there is no temptation that is unusual, and that God gives us a way out. And I've been in situations where there was a temptation, and I knew that the only way out was to call on God, because there was no way I was going to escape it on my own power. And sometimes I wouldn't escape it, and it was usually because I didn't call on this power that's greater than myself. I tried it on my own power. I'm just going to not do this thing. I'm not going to eat that second hamburger. Nope, not me. Yum. and it didn't work. One of the things that I think is a fascinating science is also, how we talk about we don't remove our character defects. We ask God to remove them. There's a good reason for that. The more we focus on the character defect, the more we focus on the defect. And that's in our front of our mind all the time. And so just trying to do better on our own power doesn't work. We usually fail. And one of the reasons is there's a brain science behind that says, well, that's what you're thinking of constantly. So why wouldn't you? Right?
So they call negative reinforcement.
Yeah. And we talked about that on one of your shows.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be like that person.
And then there you are.
And there you are.
Right.
Doing the same exact thing.
Right. What do you think about all this stuff, Denver?
I like just sitting and listening sometimes. Everything that you guys are talking about right here is a yes to me. I don't like the word triggers. I just don't. But I do know that there are circumstances and situations that have influenced me to pick up a bottle, So I don't care what you call it. You can call it trigger or
activation.
Activation.
Right.
It doesn't matter. There are things that's going to come along in life. So I'm learning that, to really not focusing on something really does get me into trouble.
Right.
When I start dwelling on something, that's liable to send me sideways real fast.
Yeah.
So I need to keep myself settled down. Thank God there is a higher power that I can turn to on a regular basis, because I do. And I was coming over here, and it seemed like I hit every yellow light. That could be a trigger, I suppose, because I was kind of feeling myself getting antsy about hitting. Dang it, I hit every yellow light. But I can't blame that on me wanting to pick up a bottle anymore.
Right.
Then
it becomes an excuse, right?
It really just is an excuse to me. So when I say I don't like the word triggers, I feel like for me, and I don't want to offend nobody, but for me, it is an excuse.
Sure.
If I'm already premeditating this drink, I need an excuse. Well, that ain't hard to find in today's world. That's a fact for me.
Right. It's not hard to find.
It's not hard.
And addicts and alcoholics will, before they ever put a substance in their body, will predetermine what they're going to blame it on.
Already headed down that path.
Yes. Yeah. It may be her I'm blaming. It may be it. It may be the environment. It may be them. It may be what I call a trigger. Well, I'll just blame that. I've got to go to Portland for this business meeting, and I used to use in Portland. Oh, my gosh, what do I do? Right? And so then at the end of the day, I had to go to Portland, and it triggered me. And
I loved what Dave said about the pen. We spent so many years, or this group, using, you know, and it doesn't take anything for me to laugh and go, oh, yeah, I remember that. And, it's not telling war stories. It's just in the back of your head. We're programmed that way from years and years and years.
Sure.
And when you see it, you just kind of, I'm learning to laugh at it, go, whoa, But it's still there.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But I don't act on it.
It's like what Marv said about the patience of your addiction. Like we joke about it. It's your addiction is out there doing push-ups.
Yeah.
Like waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, how do you respond when you see a pen? Like we're using that as an example.
The popping of the top of a pop can will turn your head.
Right. And it's like, I have to think about it like that. I use that as like, this is, God's way of reminding me to remember where I came from and how easily it can go back there if I choose to.
This speaks a lot to the maintenance of our spiritual condition. True?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It really does. So we're going through a course right now out at the Adult and Teen Challenge Center called the Conquer Series, which is specifically talking about sexual brokenness, and we know within addicts and alcoholics, many times there's sexual trauma that's been experienced. And one of the things they talk a lot about in the DVD series is what are you filling your head with? And so if you're filling your head with always trying harder, or I just can't get over this, then you're not going to. It's kind of like we kind of spoke on that the other day, Dave, about, I'm sick, right? I'm always going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. I'm always
negative reinforcements.
Right. There's something to, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge, but then the whole point, like in the 12 steps, the whole point is to move on from there, not to stay there. And so what they suggest is you fill your head with things that combat that in the sense, because it's a biblical course, this would be scriptural references that combat those things, that speak to you as being, somebody that God loves and somebody that is worthy of his love and because of what he's done for you. And you're filling your head with scripture. And I mean, if you're not a person of faith, if you fill your head with literature that is positive reinforcement and that kind of thing, if that is what you're cleaning your brain with, then your brain's more liable to go to that stuff. One of the things I do appreciate about some big book thumpers is that some of them have got that thing memorized. And they're able at a moment's notice to pick something out of that when they feel triggered or something comes up. And that's what they focus on instead of, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think there's something to be said about, because it is traumatic, these things that we've gone through in our lives. And there's always going to be activated stuff. There's always going to be triggers. I mean, I remember driving down the freeway and getting certain smells. I don't know if it was psychological. I don't know if I was really getting a whiff of maybe a meth house down the road. I don't know if it was real, but it was real to me. And there was a time that just made my head spin. Now, something like that happens. It's not, it's just, I recognize it, but it's not something that I'm in battle over for my sobriety. And I think a lot of that has to do with leaning on a power that can do for me what I can't do myself, but then doing my part and staying plugged in and in the middle of the herd and doing the work. I think if we just become abstinent and that's all we ever do, then when these things, call them triggers if you will, show up, we're probably going to be, we'll be defenseless. Because all we've done has been abstinence. We've changed our behavior, but our heart hasn't changed. And I think therein lies the key.
That's where they come up with that dry drunk
sure
term, right?
Sure.
I had a friend that after a year, his wife told him, you know what? You should either start drinking or go back to treatment.
Do something
different. Because she said she could deal with him. It was easier to get along with when he was drinking. So he went back to treatment and he got himself, kind of filled in the other pieces.
Right.
I just thought that the story was funny. I always remember that him
Yeah.
telling me that story. He was actually one of my aftercare counselors.
Oh, is that right?
And then we became friends later on down the road.
Yeah. So what triggers you, Marv, to do the next right thing?
I was talking about this in a roundabout way at a meeting the other day. It's like, and I don't know, might sound kind of silly, but okay. So in my spiritual life, there's a couple of things, and for our purposes here, I'll talk about the third step. It seems like to me that once in a serious third step, not just,
Right.
It seems to me that when I start to kind of go off on these little never-never-land trips, and sometimes that's a trigger or a nuance, or like you were to me, what you were talking about is a nuance. It's just kind of this thing that happens. You're sort of kind of aware of it.
Yeah.
But for me, it takes me some time to figure out that that's what's going on. But anyway, my point is this. Once I did a third step, it seems like that when I start to go off the beam in what I would consider maybe a radical way, that God gets a hold of me and pulls me back. Because I can't seem to stay out there that long. It's like, come here, grabs me by the shirt collar and, what are you doing, and it just...
Thank goodness, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I sit amazed at times of how long I've been sober and the stuff that life has dealt out. How did I do that? Well, it's because God grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled it and say, hey, I'm right here. What do you think about this? Or something,
Hello.
So, however, that's kind of what I...
Yeah. Denver, what triggers you to do the next right thing?
Results. If I do the right thing, everything flows smoothly. Smoothlier.
Smoothier?
That's sweet home. It just, everything is better, My walk with Christ, it started out, I wanted to get sober, and I heard this thing about higher power, so I come there, and then as I've been walking here, we and it's kind of like with the law too, you get forced into getting sober, and then you get a little taste of the goodness of that, and then you begin to want it, So it makes the journey easier because you're doing it because you want to, not because you have to.
Sure.
So that keeps me going, knowing that it gets better. It does. So why not keep going if it's going to get better?
Right.
There's struggles all the way through it.
But it takes what it takes to get to that point where you actually realize that and believe it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a rough spot. And I believe time is the one that works in our favor on that. You say it's always waiting. It is always waiting. But time, doing the good next step, in life, you're going, that was hard, but I'm here, and you see something brighter at the end of it.
Yeah.
So I keep going because it gets better.
So what do you think? What do you think about people that will have loved ones that are maybe they're alcoholic and they've come home from treatment, and mom and dad decide to take all the liquor out of the house? They're going to dump all the liquor. They don't have a problem with alcohol. They can have a drink now and then. I've got my own views on that, but nevertheless, they can do that, and they dump all the booze out to protect their son or daughter because they're afraid that's a trigger. The movie Sober, was it Michael Keaton? Yeah. His sponsor goes into his house and dumps out all the booze.
Well, that guy would have drank it if it was there, so just saying.
Really?
So I mean,
if the guy would have came home from treatment,
right,
he would have drank it.
Right.
It was just the character in
the movie
up front. Yeah,
sure.
Later on, maybe not.
But do you think it's helpful to remove the obstacles out of a person's way, or do you think we just need to leave those things be? What do you think about that?
Oh, fresh? Yeah, get them out of the way.
Depends on how long fresh is, right?
Yeah.
Is it 28 days or is it 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, but at first, it's probably a good idea not to have it's sitting in the fridge going as a reminder not to drink. That's a McCrock right there.
Yeah. I was
drinking
I had one of those guys. I got a Corona in the back of their fridge to remind me not to drink it.
That's not a good idea.
It never reminded me not to drink it.
No. But
right
after a while, you're going to have to go down the vegetable aisle. So you're going to
come face to face.
Yeah.
With your foe, so to speak. What do you think, Marv? Should we move these obstacles out of people's way, or?
Yeah. Actually, I think you should, especially in a private home or where they're going to be sleeping and eating but then there's another part of me that says that that's a control issue. If I go in and dump all that out, then I'm trying to control the situation.
It might be you have issues, not.
Yeah.
It's not really about them, right?
Yeah. But for the most part, and it's funny, I never got bothered about. I played music in taverns.
Sure.
And different places, people drinking all over. And the only time I can tell you I did get bothered was out to dinner at the Elks Lodge in Lebanon. And people all around me drinking beer.
Yeah.
I had about 5 years of sobriety at the time.
Right.
And man, I started getting on edge. I was squirrely. And what the world? I could smell that beer. The guy I was with was not an alcoholic. And I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I got this nice looking steak sitting in front of me. And finally, I just turned to my buddy and I said, hey, Max, I said, I really want a drink. And he gave me a funny look, But as soon as I did that, as soon as I could acknowledge that out loud, went away.
The power of it went away.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've always told my clients that, we can't expect everyone else to change their lives because of us.
True enough.
So it has to be like the person that, if they're going to live with somebody or, one of your friends or whatever, that if you live alone, maybe go over your house, like in the movie with Michael Keaton, because that just causes more problems if we go live with family members or something, and all of a sudden we expect them to like change everything that they do, or we go home and we expect all of our family to like change everything that they do just for us. It's
like being a reformed smoker. The second day you've quit smoking, you're telling everybody else.
Right. The old pink cloud, right? You get out of treatment, now you're like telling everybody else how to do it and what to do and what not to do.
I do know this though, and
we don't know any of those, do we?
I'll apply this to eating habits. If there is certain foods that I need to not eat, if they're not in my cupboard, they're not there for me to eat. They just aren't. So I don't know. I've got somebody who's very close to me that has just quit smoking, and she's said that she's thinking about buying a pack of cigarettes to remind her not to smoke. And I'm like, really? If I was my first week of not smoking and I kept a pack of cigarettes in my pocket,
I don't know. That's how I quit chewing, man. I carried around a tin in my pocket.
Did you really?
And if I didn't have it with me, I'd like have a panic attack, and I'd have to go buy another tin, and I'd take a dip, and then I'd be like, "What the hell am I doing?" And then it would I'd be fine, right? Until the next time I happened to like forget to put it in my pocket. And till pretty soon I had one everywhere, so I didn't have to worry about it. But after a while, I just forgot. I just stopped putting it in my pocket, and I couldn't tell you when it was, or the date, or anything like that, or circumstances why that things changed. But that's what worked for me.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah,
recovery's such a crazy journey,
isn't it?
Crazy journey.
Now I wouldn't do that with like meth. I wouldn't keep a bag of meth in my pocket and say,
"Not for long."
Yeah, not for long.
Oh my God! I have power over my triggers, so I carry a bag of meth in my pocket.
Yeah. I tried to do that once after a period of sobriety. I'm like, I could probably do some meth again. Yeah, it was not. Yeah.
Well, I kept doing this thing, but okay.
Took my computer apart.
One day, I told myself, one day I can take a bag of dope, and if I can get over to the toilet and dump the whole thing in the toilet, I'll know I'm serious about my recovery. So I kept buying that bag of dope, but I never quite made it to the toilet. It just didn't seem to work.
Hey, if you ever,
Maybe the bag,
you ever
not
think
the
about doing
contents.
that again, just give me the money.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll donate it to
my
Take
gosh.
12 Radio.
Here's something that is interesting, and then we'll do our closing song. But brain science is just fascinating to me. And one of the things that we know that can happen is we can actually develop new DNA in our structure of our brain by input, by things we, thought processes. And we know that we can't repair dead brain cells, but we can rebuild new pathways.
Neural pathways.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the DNA can actually change, and some of the thought patterns and so forth. And then that DNA we can actually pass on to our children, and then they have that. And we can actually, I'm beyond childbearing years, but if you're young and you want to pass some good stuff on to your kids, you can actually start by changing the way you think now. About different things. It actually, they've proven that this can be passed on. So, that's why I say, what triggers you to do the next right thing? So maybe we shouldn't focus so much on what triggers us to go off the rails, but what's the triggers that we can put in our lives to keep us on target?
We just do it.
Yeah.
Right? Just do the next right thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I know it changed early in my recovery. That was kind of my mantra. And, if you tell the truth, you don't have anything to remember.
Right.
And so I was tested on that like the first 2 weeks I got out of treatment. And so I did the next right thing, and the outcome was good, and I felt good about myself and the situation. I just kept doing it. It's like, why would I stop doing something that's working, right? Mm-hmm. That's usually why people end up relapsing, because they stop doing what's working for them.
Sure. You bet. What was I going to tell you? I can't remember now. I lost my train of thought. Well, the committee. We referred to the committee in our heads. The things we tell ourselves, those voices we hear. Recovery comedian Mark Lundholm says there's never any less than 3 voices in his head. The healthy voice, the recovery voice, and the troll-like voice that wants him to fail and all that kind of thing. Well, our closing song is by Michael Brown, and it's entitled The Committee. I think you guys will enjoy this. Listen, there are things in your life that are going to be worldly clamors, the big book calls them, that are going to beg for your attention. And some of them will pull you off the rails if you let them. Through the application and implementation of the 12-step process, a lot of people have succeeded. A lot of people have. And I just encourage you that whatever you're doing, make yourself accountable to somebody. Don't use triggers as an excuse. They can be very real. They are very real, but they don't have to be the reason that you fall off the rails. So don't listen to the committee too much. Here's Michael Brown with his song, The Committee.
members have gathered and the seats are assigned. The committee is meeting right here in my mind. One screams for vengeance, one cries out in pain. One sits there quietly, repeating your name. One says you love me, one reminds me you're gone. There's no escaping the committee of one. And they all raise a toast to the host who can't make them leave. They're up until dawn, rambling on till I fall asleep. And when I awake, they're waiting in place and the party is on. Madcap confusion is business as usual for the committee of one. The committee of one. Members have gathered and the seats are assigned. The committee is meeting right here in my mind. One sits there crying, one can't help but laugh. One tells me the future, one drags out the past. One has all the answers, one says they're all wrong. A three-ring circus, the committee of one. And they all raise a toast to the host who can't make them leave. They're up until dawn, rambling on till I fall asleep. When I awake, they're waiting in place and the party is on. Madcap confusion is business as usual for the committee of one. The committee of one. The committee of one.
That's Mr. Michael Brown with his song, The Committee. Hey, don't forget, you can always email us here at take12radio@comcast.net. That's TAKE, the number 12 radio. And by the way, we are now on iHeart Radio. Just search for us. Search for Take 12 Recovery Radio. It'll pop up. Also on iTunes. You can download our app on Podomatic. We are on YouTube. We are on WordPress and Blogger. Well, just about every platform you can think of, you can find Take 12 Recovery Radio. You can do all that by simply going to take12radio.com and clicking on any of those links to make us available for you on the go or in your office or your home or wherever recovery is leading the way in your life. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with the Take 12 Recovery
radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
'Cause she's a super cat, she's super kitty, meow.
Yeah, kitty, 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 kitty. Meow.